Cheryl?
Daddy? Daddy?
Sweetie, you're okay? Are you at home? Sweetie?
Silent Hill's Shattered Memories is a third-person psychological horror game where you play as Harry Mason after his car crashes and his daughter Cheryl goes missing. The game is available on PlayStation 2 and Nintendo Wii.
Damn it!
Atmosphere. Shattered Memories is a strange blend of the sorrowful and the eerie. Dark, empty hallways of school buildings on break, shops that are closed rather than abandoned. The town of Silent Hill isn't dead, it's still very much alive. Everything feels lived in, and that combined with the sad and melancholy music that plays alongside the game makes it seem more like you're trespassing. Rooms are dark but not always foreboding, and a big factor to that is the lack of combat. There's no tension for what might be lurking down any of the hallways since you already know. Though even that low level of tension is only for certain parts of the game, since there's also just a lot of nothing. The ice and snow don't really do much for the atmosphere, which is strange since they're a major component of the game's themes and story. And when the music stops and you're walking through the brightly lit town during the day in a whiteout, the atmosphere fades away completely. What does benefit the game is the warning at the start about its psychological profiling of you. It's hard not to feel paranoid sometimes since the game says it's watching you, though it's easy to forget as you play. The most important thing to take away is that so much of the game is pivoting on the story. Its environments and characters, everything holds a significance to the story, but it's hard to understand or appreciate any of it until the game is all but over, where it will suddenly make sense. But for the majority of the experience, the atmosphere is almost not there. That's no Harry Masons. Scares. The way the game tries to scare you mainly is in the psychological aspects of its profiling, with subtle changes in the gameplay and more obvious decision and personality tests changing things about the game. Though the changes themselves aren't always the source of the horror as much as the fact that the game is reading you as you play, and this revelation itself can be disturbing. It's fascinating in the way that even a mundane decision you made, or something you inadvertently did, is something the game will remember. It's even logging what you look at in the cutscenes. The way it used the profiling though was less impressive. Some of the changes themselves were almost imperceptible. Character clothing, subtle things in the environments, and the way some people act. The most impressive thing was a summary of your personality in the credits. Sadly though, one of the biggest flaws the game has is that you won't notice any difference at all if you only play the game through once. Other than this, there's a few minor jump scares that pop up as you encounter flashbacks and trapped memories. These often have a build up to them though to help you find them, so the actual event doesn't really come across as frightening. The biggest problem the game has is the chase sequences. There's no gameplay besides running, and there's not much to do but keep running and hope you find a way out of the long areas with multiple branching paths that can lead you in loops if you aren't careful. There's also quick time events to complete to shake your pursuers off you if they catch up with you. These go on for a while, not overtly long, but it's hard to tell which way to go, and checking the map doesn't pause the game. It's hard to see what these sequences add to the game. though they are once again symbolic alongside the enemy designs that can change with your psychological profiling, but they still aren't threatening or frightening, but more so just annoying. It feels like the real horror only comes as a form of story revelation at the end of the game, which is just a bit too late. That's still no Harry Masons. Sound design. The soundtrack is full of melancholy pieces, repeating tones and pianos that warble uncertainly as you walk down the game's many dark corridors. There are the same dissonant tracks you'll be familiar with from Silent Hill, and there's a great use of vocal samples in some of them, with laughing and awkward moans being part of some of the tracks, but they all have a great atmospheric feeling to them. Many of them are very similar to previous Silent Hill soundtracks. The sound effects were all oddly lower quality than I would have expected from the PlayStation 2, but they were consistent across the board in that regard, and the sounds themselves fitted every scenario without complaint.
I've read your notes. The other therapist didn't work out for you. I want you to know this will be different. We take this at your pace. No notes, no drugs, no theories. We go back to the start. Understand what happened.
The voice acting is really good, especially Kaufman's and Sybil's. The game uses directional audio to try and lure you towards the memories you can interact with, but this didn't always work especially well, which might be an emulation problem. But it's a good idea regardless.
You got all your books? Your lunch? Good. How come you changed your hair? The other girls tell you to do your hair like that? I thought you looked great with pigtails. Okay, honey. You have a nice day.
The Wii version allows for the various phone calls you get to come through the Wiimote speaker, which often led to dialogue being harder to understand based on the quality of your Wiimote speaker, but the PlayStation 2 version did a great job with it. Really though, the sound design was mostly just competent, which for a Silent Hill game is a little disappointing considering the series' history of going above and beyond for sound design, but overall, Shattered Memories did a good enough job. That's one Harry Mason. Gore. There's no gore in the game and it didn't need any. That's two Harry Masons.
Cheryl! Cheryl? Sweetie?
Story.
Oh my god.
Silent Hill Shattered Memories follows Harry Mason as he awakens after a car crash and goes searching for his daughter Cheryl.
Cheryl? 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 Cheryl!
And the story follows him through a frozen Silent Hill in the midst of a blizzard, bumping into characters you'll find familiar from the original game. And as you take breaks between its gameplay, you talk to psychologist Dr. Kaufman about yourself, answering his riddles and doing exercises for him. The story unravels slowly. There's seemingly random phone messages and memories you can uncover from visiting locations with Harry's phone. Unlike a lot of the things about the game, initially they're confusing and seem unrelated, but as time goes on they paint a picture. Sometimes a character is recognizable, sometimes a pattern forms. The characters you meet are all facing an aspect of their life that's trying to get the player character to confront something they won't, and the psychological profiling changes this too, altering yours and their fates as the story progresses. The story is Shattered Memories' strongest aspect, with a really masterfully executed tale of guilt and loss that's sadly, like the rest of the game, hard to appreciate until it's over, But once the game ends, the whole experience becomes clear, and even things that seem small and insignificant take on this profoundly sad meaning that doesn't come across at all when you find them. And the beauty of the profiling is that you become the character you're painted to be. The little actions you did throughout the game transformed how you're perceived by the end. It's an extremely impressive feat, and the game did a great job with it. Making the final score 3 out of 5 Harry Masons. Shattered Memories is definitely not my favourite game in the series, and so much of it meant nothing as I played it, until the end gave the rest of the game its context, which is an extremely risky move that will either pay off or it won't, and so much of the review is based around the idea that it won't really be understood until after the credits rolled. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I reunited Harry with Cheryl, I didn't give in to the fantasy and advise you don't either. There will be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. Always go check out Bumps in the Middle of the Night. Peace.